Iran freaks out when it sees US military personnel boarding a ship linked to its shadow fleet in a filmed operation in the Indian Ocean, as Trump tightens the blockade against the clandestine oil that fuels the regime and even reaches China. On Friday, June 5, 2026, the boarding of the MT Vina shows that Washington is not just talking about sanctions. They are putting troops, helicopters, and real pressure on the route that Tehran uses to keep money coming in even under sanctions. The sanctioned ship became a symbol of a strong message. What was this ship carrying? Why is China involved in this story? How is Trump going to tighten the siege even more? I'll tell you all about it in a moment. If you like this kind of straightforward and no-nonsense content, consider subscribing because we have videos like this every day. United States military forces carried out a maritime interdiction against the MT Davina, a sanctioned vessel with no recognized flag located in the Indian Ocean within the area of responsibility of the Indo-Pacific Command. The operation was announced by American authorities as part of global enforcement against ships accused of providing material support to Iran. In the footage, helicopters approach, soldiers descend by ropes, and the team advances across the deck. It was not a routine visit, it was a military operation against an important part of Tehran's clandestine oil network. The MT Davina didn't show up in this crisis by chance. The vessel had already been under United States sanctions since October 2024 due to its connection with Iranian oil trade. It is also associated with the name Naval and with records of false flagging, a maneuver used by ships trying to evade tracking, inspection, and economic sanctions. This is what's called the Ghost Fleet, a network of oil tankers, shell companies, and confusing routes that allows the Iranian regime to sell oil even when Washington tries to cut off its source of money. The cargo makes the case even more sensitive. Naval tracking data cited by international outlets indicated that the supertanker could carry up to 2 million tons. The Iranian tanker was almost full when it was located near the southern coast of Sri Lanka. That's where the operation takes on political significance. If the ship was linked to Iranian oil and was following the logic of supplying China, the approach doesn't just target Tehran. It also involves Beijing, the main destination for this oil sold through alternative routes. Trump uses this maritime pressure to cut off Iran's financial oxygen. The regime needs oil to sustain its military machine, finance its allies, maintain regional influence, and withstand sanctions. When the United States boards a sanctioned ship in the middle of the Indian Ocean, the message reaches the companies that hide the origin of the cargo, the buyers who accept suspicious documentation, and the governments that pretend not to see the scheme at work. Tehran responded by trying to show strength. The Iranian Navy claimed it had fired warning missiles and drones at American warships in the Gulf of Oman, accusing the United States of interfering with maritime traffic and attacking commercial vessels. Washington denied that Iranian forces had attacked or fired at American ships. For Iran's internal narrative, this version serves to show bravery. For Washington's perspective, it shows a regime's desperation as its maritime route is monitored, blocked, and exposed. The crisis also affects the negotiations. Sources connected to Iran began to say that talks with the United States were stalled or making no progress after American actions at sea and Israel's movements in Lebanon. Trump continues to leave the possibility of an agreement open, but without easing the pressure. The White House is not negotiating a pause. They negotiate with the blockade in place, with active sanctions, with the ship being boarded, and with the Iranian regime feeling the cost of each day of resistance. The Pentagon had already been increasing its response at sea. Days earlier, the United States Central Command reported that an American aircraft disabled the Lion starship in the Gulf of Oman, after more than 20 warnings were ignored during an attempt to head to an Iranian port in violation of the blockade. The vessel was hit in the engine room to prevent it from advancing, without turning the action into a widespread attack against the crew. This detail shows the pattern. Washington is trying to stop the flow, not start an uncontrolled naval war. If the ships stop, the revenue drops. If the revenue drops, internal pressure increases. If China starts facing higher costs to receive this oil, the entire network becomes more expensive and risky. The operation against the MMT Davina exposes exactly that. The regime built a route to escape the sanctions, and Trump starts treating this route as a strategic target. Israel comes into this picture through another path. International reports indicated that Israeli military forces and intelligence agents operated in Azerbaijan during the war against Iran near the Iranian border, on missions related to surveillance, drones, and intelligence gathering. This detail increases the sense of encirclement for Tehran. At sea, the United States cuts off the oil route. In the region, Israel tightens intelligence and shortens the operational distance against Iranian targets. The regime realizes that the pressure no longer comes from a single point. The Iranian reaction shows discomfort because the MMT Davina represents more than just a vessel. It represents the economic survival model used by Tehran to circumvent sanctions. Ships without a clear flag, alternative names, hard-to-track cargo, and buyers willing to take risks form a system that worked for a long time because many avoided confronting the problem on the high seas. The detail in the images turns an invisible sanction into a concrete scene. Many people hear about blockades, the shadow fleet, and clandestine trade, but they don't see how it works in practice. The boarding shows the moment when policy turns into action. Helicopters in the air, soldiers descending onto the deck, and a sanctioned vessel being inspected in waters far from the Middle East. The sanction stops being just on paper and appears at sea. The Iranian regime may threaten to take the crisis to the Indian Ocean, to the Red Sea, to Bab el-Mandeb, and even to the Mediterranean. But this threat also reveals Tehran's dependence on sensitive maritime routes. The more Iran spreads the crisis, the more it justifies the American presence. The more it threatens ships, the more it opens the way for a blockade. The more it uses the shadow fleet, the more it gives reason for interdiction. Trump exploits this contradiction with pressure that doesn't have to defer to the Iranian narrative. From now on, the question is whether the MMT Davina will have its cargo held, if new companies will be sanctioned, and if China will be directly pressured for accepting Iranian oil through parallel networks, while Israel maintains intelligence operations around Iranian territory. I'm Milson Alves, an international affairs specialist, and my purpose is to keep you well informed with the truth every day. The news links are in the video description. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and at the end check out the comments so you can be even more engaged with the Milson Alves community.